Hi class, so now it's time to do the shading part of the project. And we are going to start out doing your grid using the width of your ruler like we have done with the stippling and the cross-hatching project. So I'm using my straight edge of my ruler and using the width to create my grid lines. Alright, so I have my grid drawn. Now, the same thing that we have done with the stippling and cross-hatching project is you are not tracing your fruit on this paper, but you are looking at your grid lines that I have drawn for you on here and looking at your grid lines on here. So some of you are having some difficulties with this, but what you are doing is you are looking at these boxes, and while you're looking at it, you're isolating everything else around it and focusing on the lines that are in that box. So I'm going to ignore this little tiny strip here and use this as my first row of boxes. So this is my first row. So my shadow here is the second box in. It goes up at an angle just like that. So that is the first line I'm going to draw. The second line is this part of the shadow. So it is one box up and a little bit over, one box up, a little bit over, and it goes at a curved angle just like that. And now I'm going to start drawing my apple. So my apple goes from the top of the second box through this one, up through the third box, the stem goes a little bit up to that fourth box. And then the right side of the apple takes up all this space here. And it comes off the page here. Alright, so now I have everything drawn, and now we're going to erase all of our grid lines. We didn't erase our grid lines before doing the stippling and the cross-hatching because we were using Sharpie, and we can erase later. But because we are using charcoal, we need to erase all of your grid lines on the outside and the inside of your fruit, so that way when we add the charcoal on top, we don't need to erase anything. Alright class, so I have my fruit drawn on my paper. My grid line is erased. Now if you notice that I have a piece of paper towel underneath my project because charcoal does create a lot of dust that's going to get everywhere. So we are going to get paper towels out that you're going to put underneath to keep your workspace clean, so that way we don't have to clean up as much on our tables. So I have several Q-tips that we're going to use for blending our charcoal. And I have my piece of charcoal and my photo in front of me. So I'm going to start with the dark values on here that I'm looking at first with my charcoal. And while you're using your charcoal, you want to press very, very lightly. So let me show you. So it doesn't take much pressure on the paper to create dark values with your charcoal. So we're going to start with our dark values, looking at the shapes that our shadow make. I'm just getting in some area there. It's dark on this side of my apple. It's dark where my stem comes out. Worry about my stem a little bit later. It's dark on this side of my pear where my apple touches it. I'm using the corners of my charcoal to get a nice crisp line. I'm going to draw in my shadows where it's very dark. And then to get in some lighter values, I'm gonna press even lighter, barely touching my paper, and just kind of scribble in some light areas. Get my darker areas in there. You notice this charcoal is very dusty. And it doesn't look smooth on your paper. So one very important thing is you never, ever, ever want to blow the dust across your paper to get those dusty particles off your paper, because one, it'll make a mess all over the table, and two, it'll make streaks on your paper, and three, it'll just upset the people across from you, and it's not really good for your health. So to blend these areas of color, that's where your Q-tips come in. So if you take your Q-tip and smear it all over the charcoal, it'll blend and make a nice, more even color. And it'll look soft instead of dusty and have those particles in there. So I'm using my Q-tip to blend and get in my medium values in there. I can smooth out my darker values to have more even color. Blend in my shadows to have smooth area of color. Now you see when you use your Q-tip to blend, you see all these little areas where the dust particles are coming up and sitting on your paper in clumps. So how to get those off without blowing the particles across the table is carefully lift up your paper and just lightly tap it on your paper towel. And when we clean up, we'll just fold it all up nicely in your paper towel so that way it doesn't get all over the floor and all over the table. So I'm gonna go back in with my charcoal and add in my stem. Can add in some more darker values. Now you can also lighten some areas. If you take your eraser, you can actually fill in some highlights by erasing some of the charcoal areas. So I can see where there's my lighter light colors and my apple, and add in those highlights by erasing some areas. It's a really, really light area right there. And again, I can smooth some areas out with my charcoal or with my Q-tip. Alright, so now we're going to move on to our pear and do the same kind of thing. So it's dark along where the apple is. You can see that there's like a little black line there, some darker values on the left-hand side. But very light areas on the right-hand side. You can use your Q-tip to blend. Get in my stem. Again, to get the dust off, tap it on your paper towel. You can go back in with your eraser and add in details. Alright, so to get the background, you see that is this light medium background. So just like we did for the other ones, you just want to put maybe a little bit of your charcoal down, and then we can start using your Q-tips to blend it so that way you have a nice even coat of medium or light medium value as your background. Alright, so here I have my final. I have my light values, my medium values, and my dark values with my shadows. So now I am done. And when you finish, we're going to get it checked by me, Miss G, and then we are going to spray it with a fixative so that way all of the charcoal particles stay on your paper, and it helps protect it from smearing, which can happen over time. So just come up to me and we'll go to the spray booth and spray it with a spray fixative.